to start, but first I have questions for both Dan and Carrick here. Dan, give me some good advice on what you should do next to improve your security posture.
Some good advice, I think, always implementing MFA around your servers and internal systems is important.
There you go. That's some good advice. Now, flip side, Carrick, give me some bad advice on what you should do to improve your security posture. Next,
you should
what's the next
absolutely,
thing you should do?
yeah. You should absolutely always chase the latest gimmick, the latest trend.
Okay, Chase. Okay, this is going to be easy for you, Dan. Give me some worse advice on what to do next for your security posture.
I think developing a open tunnel to China and Russia via your VPN will really improve everything.
All right, I feel that's a little facetious, but let's start the show anyways.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
Hey everybody, welcome to Super Cyber Friday. My name is David Spark. I am the host of the CISO series and this today's Super Cyber Friday. Today's topic is hacking your security program. This is really going to be a fun conversation because we're going to have an hour of critical thinking of what you should do next to improve your security posture. I know there's a whole slew of things you could do, but the question is, what should you do next? As in, what is going to give you the biggest bang for the buck? And we're going to discuss that very topic today. Our guest today, you just met him 2 seconds ago, it's Carrick Stanwyck. He's the VP of Global Cybersecurity and Compliance over at Avnet or AVNet. Actually, how do you pronounce that?
Avnet.
Avnet. And Dan DeClaw, CEO of Plextrack, a phenomenal guest we've had here many times. I'm going to give everyone a warning. Now, while everyone can see Dan very, very well right now, for some reason, he's having issues, can't see us, so he may only be able to hear us most of the show, regardless. So I will try not to do anything too visual for him. Hey, Plextrack is our sponsor, and for those you don't know, they've been an absolute phenomenal sponsor of the CISO series, so we greatly appreciate their support, and Dan has done this a bunch of times, and we love having him on the show. He's awesome. All right, 7 different ways you can participate. Here are the prompts for the bad idea and the 10% tip. The prompt is, what not to do next for your security program. That's your bad idea. What not to do next for your security program. And then the 10% better is the opposite of that is, what should you do next for your security program? Join us on video with Bring Me On. Ask a question. Vote for your favorite question. If you look in the bottom where it says ask a question, you just click that link and ask any question you like. I always prioritize your questions. All right. That's today's schedule. Looks a lot like the others. We'll play the public interest. We want your bad ideas. We want your 10% better tips. We'll put polls live for both. We'll play the Department of Yes. We'll have your last question and final advice. And then finally, we'll do our meetup. And for those of you who've never participated, it is a lot of fun. You get to have face-to-face time with all the other people. And for those of you who are not regulars, I'm talking to you, please join our meetup. I want to meet you, and everybody else wants to meet you as well. Hey, our next show is not going to be next week because we got a holiday weekend, so it's going to be the week after. So 2 weeks from now, February 24th, Hacking Vulnerability Remediation, an hour of critical thinking of how to improve the efficiency of what vulnerability needs to be fixed next and by whom. So if you're here for this show, guess what? You're going to probably like the next one. So click that link at the bottom of the screen. If you do click that link at the bottom of the screen, it won't take you out of this chat. You'll still be in it. It'll open up another window. You can register for that while still being in the show and participating as well. And then register early because if you're automatically entered in a raffle to win a CISO Series jacket. Congrats to this week's winner, Emma Broomhead of Viaku. All right, let's get back to the show at hand. And we are talking about what to fix next. Okay, so I'm going to start with my own questions. And again, audience, get your questions in as well. Your security program is always a work in progress that is hopefully always improving. Let me stress that, hopefully. Why is it key that your company view it that way and you view other companies' security programs that way, Dan? I'm going to start you that everybody's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think the adage is always true in security is that it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And
Well,
you're always
marathons at least have an ending to it.
yeah, that's very true. A
What?
marathon that will continue to progress to another marathon, and
They
and so
they
there's
call it the
never.
infinite game. And Simon Sinek has a great book on this. They're
Oh, and
very
I've
top,
read
but
that
it's
book.
an
Yeah,
infinite game.
fantastic book. Yes, and I love Simon Sinek too. So, but I think it's that adage is very appropriate in that you cannot have a quick win, a quick easy button to just being absolutely secure. And there's no such notion as a wholly secure organization, right? There's always risk management involved, and you're always having trade offs. And so, what is important is the notion of comparing yourself to how you were last week, how you were last month, and last year, and being able to say, like, are we making progress, and are we focused on the right areas to shore up the most important gaps, and then continuing to narrow down any other areas of emphasis that you would have based on your sector, based on your industry, based on your customer base, all of those things. And so I think it's always important to know that there's not going to be a silver bullet for your organization and any
Right.
organization.
So I'm going to just do a tip of the hat to Dwayne Grant, whose great bad idea is move all your data into a server suspended from a high altitude balloon, which, by the way, I'm going to just throw this out here. That is not that bad an idea because they're still having a hard time finding the wreckage from the balloon. So actually, you've been pretty safe, your data there. I just like talk about pretty safe data. Maybe not that bad an idea. Carrick, here's my question from what Dan just said regarding the fact that it's an infinite game. You have to look at from last year to this year. What does the security team learn about itself, I guess, as you're iterating improvements? Is there something that they learn about themselves and the program overall? What would you say to that?
I think that over time, when you're challenged and you see new threats, I mean, as Larry noted, now we have balloons to worry about, right? Assume breach, not a weather balloon. I mean, over time, if you think even back the last 3 or 4 years, what the team deals with, what the latest trend is in the attackers and what they're using, it changes constantly.
Mhm.
If nothing, if there is one consistent in our industry, it's change. And over time, when you see the team adapt and overcome and adapt and overcome, there's a sense of resiliency that comes with that, right?
Mhm.
And it's great to see that level of confidence come with a team that's seen a number of different challenges and overcome all of them.
And do you? I mean, because my feeling is this is the kind of stuff, and this is where, and I'm gonna bring in a little bit of what Plextrack does here, because Plextrack allows you to sort of follow your progress and let you sort of cue how your progress should be. And Dan, I'm going to cue you in for a second to explain that. But first, Carrick, my feeling is tools like this can help promote the security team. Like, look what we did. We're actually doing something rather than so the business knows that there's value in the security team and what progress they're making, because people, you know, people want to know that their money and their efforts are being spent wisely. Yes. So is there ways that you demonstrate to your team, Carrick, or to the business that your team is improving?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we are blessed to be able to meet with the board and go over our actual metrics. We believe in a lot of transparency, right? Because if we're transparent about where we're at and how we're growing, to your point, and just for tools like Plextrack and such, it allows you to show the evidence of that progress over time. Absolutely. Not just in one area either, right? As things change, it allows you to show how you've evolved, how you've pivoted, how you've looked at that new threat, and how you've tackled those new threat landscapes that are coming in, whether it's Ukraine type stuff, if you're a global company, whether it's other things, it allows for you to track that stuff.
All right. Now I'm going to throw this to you, Dan. Given like the question I just asked, Carrick, how could Plextrack, explain what it does, but how can it allow, a security leader to show how awesome the security team is doing, assuming they use Plextrack appropriately?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, so for what we do is we're really trying to empower the security team to tell the right stories and create the narrative around here are the things that we've been testing, and we come at it from a proactive approach, right? So we integrate with all the data sources of proactive assessments like vulnerability scanners, pen test as a service platforms, breach and attack simulation providers, as well as the manual testing that goes on, whether that's a pen test or a risk assessment. Being able to collect all that data into Plextrack allows you to aggregate that data, prioritize the risks and the findings, and then what's most important. This was the biggest pain I had as a defender was not only do we have all these great reports coming from all these tools and all these pen tests, but then actually being able to track and remediate the findings and show who's making progress, who's assigned to what, and then that starts to paint the picture through analytics of we're getting better. These are the key gaps that we're exposed in our environment, and we're shoring those up. So it really is a mechanism to help paint the right picture of, yeah, the bad thing didn't happen because of all this effort that has gone in and all these investments, and maybe some bad things did happen, but they didn't get as severe. It wasn't as severe because of the efforts that have gone in. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges in our space as an industry is, security itself is hard to, it's been hard to quantify, hey, this investment worked because nothing happened, or the things haven't happened or we haven't identified them yet. And that's always that eternal struggle. So we're just trying to help organizations paint the picture of here's what's working, here's what's not, here's what we're going to be working on next. And that's really our mission.
Here, I'm going to, two things came in from Hadass that I want to sort of connect together and ask you a question, Dan, specifically about Plextrack. So Hadass was asking, like, has a question, what metrics are we reviewing, which is a general question for your product and also for you, Carrick. But I want to mention her 10% better, which also my co-host Andy Ellis has mentioned, is figure out what your people hate to do and automate it so that you can remove burnout. So which is a great thing to know because they'll give you sort of the ground level. Is there a way with Plextrack to feed it like specific processes, like how can certain things improve in terms of security setup? Like, I guess, can you be directional with the way Plextrack behaves? So I could say, oh, these people hate this. Like, how can I get Plextrack to be paying attention to that?
So, I mean, certainly we help on a lot of the workflows around security assessments, engagements, and bringing in data, so eliminating a lot of the manual efforts that go in around those. So we try to help automate as much of the manual processes that go into the data collection, the reporting, the tracking and remediation, right? That's really our focus. And then analytics is an amazing outcome of having all that data and progress. So, I mean, the things that we really help people track today are not only, a picture of what issues exist and their criticality and how you're prioritizing them, who's assigned to them, but also your trends and SLAs around how quickly are we fixing these things? Are we setting benchmarks that, we're meeting? And then, where that helps lead to the questions around what do we need to do to improve those SLAs, or is there something that is a fundamental gap in our environment? So that's how we help companies paint those pictures. I'd love to hear of other opportunities, right? So,
all right, so I'm going to throw this to you, Carrick. Really, the question that Hadass is, what metrics are you measuring? A common question that's asked security leaders. But is there one that you're always, like, the one we hear all the time is mean time to remediate, MTTR. Is that the one that you're always trying to improve? Is there one that you sort of focus around?
That's a tough question. I think it depends on what we're trying to do. I'll be honest, I'm really trying to move away from focusing on some of the historical security metrics, at least for the broader business audience, because it doesn't resonate with them the same way it does with us, right? My goal is really to start to make this transition to what are the metrics that we can provide that matter to the business, because frankly, they're paying our bill. So if they can understand what we're doing to help them, whether it's less downtime, better operations, whether it's, here are the contracts and business deals that we've supported through contract reviews and third-party risk, right? That puts that value in a little bit different light on with the actual revenue that we've been able to associate our spend with. To your point, though, there's also that risk reduction aspect. So probably vulnerability management, being a global company and all over the world, that's always something that we're chasing. There's always a push there. But overall, when it comes to how we communicate up, the more security centric it is, honestly, the less valuable it probably is.
Good point. I do, you know what, we're going to jump into our next game, but I want to remind everybody, click the link at the bottom of the screen to register for the event we're going to have in 2 weeks. And you just mentioned vulnerability management. So if you're interested in today's topic and vulnerability management, why wouldn't you be? Or it's actually remediation. We're going to be discussing, join that in 2 weeks. But this is what I want to do is I want to set us up for the next game here. And here we go. Let's hear the music.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
All right, everyone knows how this game's played. I have to I'm going to throw this out to Aaron and Andrew. Please type in the back channel. Has any guest actually gotten 4 questions correct? I don't know if we've got one guest who's gotten 4. We've got audience members who's done it, definitely. I don't know if we've had a guest who's done it. So this is a tough game, as you all know. So simple, yet very difficult. Here we go. The public interest. I want to know. Why is this? There we go. Most average monthly search queries, gentlemen, for Dan and for Carrick here. Is it pen test or red team? And by the way, Dan, can you see this?
I can see it. Yes.
Okay, so pen test or red team? What do you think?
I'm going to
say pen test.
Yeah, pen test.
You're both going with pen test,
Yeah.
and right now you're not getting 4 out of 4.
Not a good start.
No. but it seems the audience was on our side.
There
Yeah,
you go. It
exactly.
looks like by the way, you also have to keep in mind the people who search the internet are all not security professionals. It's always have to point out. Red team could mean literally anything else.
Halo.
Very few people picked B. Most went with A. All right.
I'll take that as a win.
Okay, so how to improve or how to fail? What do you think gets more?
C.
C? What do you think, Dan?
Yeah. Now, without the context of security, I would guess with C as well. Yeah.
Okay, both of you go for C, and the correct answer is C. Very good. Actually,
Hey, all right.
more than 3-1 there. Very nice.
Although it's pretty depressing that there's only 720 searches per month on how to improve.
I don't quite understand
Gotta
why these
get
search
better.
numbers, some of them get really low sometimes, but it's,
How to fail.
I don't know. But this is going through Google, uses a thing called searchvolume.io. All right, getting better or getting worse? What do you think?
I would say F,
I would say
getting
E.
worse.
So you're going
I'm going to
F.
say E.
E, F, they're splitting
Yeah.
decision. Correct answer 1, E. And you,
Oh, way
you should have been
better.
paying attention to the previous one because the previous one was, was the same thing. All right, a lot of F's in there too as well. I don't know if anyone's going to get 100%. All right, last one. These are classics. Are we secure or are we safe? What do you think gets more?
H.
Yeah, I was going to say
H.
H as well.
H. And the correct answer is yes, H. Look at that. Much, much bigger than that. So, yeah, I can't believe this. There's more than that. I think this more has to do with the ratio than total volume, to tell you the truth. But that's what we got here. All right, gentlemen, you didn't do so well on that game. But you know what? That does not speak very poorly. Here's my question. We were talking about metrics just a second ago, and we had an interesting question that came in from Dwayne. He says, Peter Drucker famously said, what gets measured, whoops, this blanked away. What gets measured gets managed. Interesting reason for Plextrack. How can security program managers think critically and measure the right stuff? So my question in more is like what your customers use. I got to assume that just using your product enlightens people like, oh, now I got to start paying attention to this kind of a thing. What do you find that they rally? I know it's hard because you got tons of different companies, but do you find them rallying around something more than something else? Do you find that, Dan?
Yeah. I mean, and obviously due to the nature of our, kind of our approach to the market is, and my background in penetration testing, we really see that there's a stronger rallying towards, hey, what are the critical areas within the attack kill chain that will expose us to a deeper breach or truly the gaps around what would cause an attacker to be in and have longer dwell time and be able to access whatever, you know, the quote unquote crown jewels are. So it's very focused on the attack kill chain. I think that MITRE ATT&CK framework has provided a good glue for, you know, internal communications around security. And I appreciated what you had mentioned before around, you know, how do you translate that up to the business, right? And so what we're seeing is also being able to highlight the priorities of the gaps of these are the elements that they're working on from a security perspective that actually tie back to where they might get exposed from a business perspective. And so we do see that commentary becoming more prevalent, and which is good. I mean, that's where we need to head, right? Because as business people, we need to know how we keep the lights on and keep the business running, and what are the biggest areas of risk? Because again, we're all in the risk management capacity at the end of the day.
I got a question that just came in from Dutch. He says, what's an effective way to tie, and he uses some acronyms I don't know here, but what's an effective way to tie security metrics to more specific financial metrics beyond just revenue? I'm asking you this, Carrick. He mentioned ROIC, ROWC, cash cycle. I'm not familiar. Maybe you can explain what these are. Get your bad ideas in, by the way. We're going to put up the poll a few minutes later, by the way. What say to you that, like, do you... First of all, is there a demand to connect things to, you know, return on investment? And if you know what any of these other acronyms are, but what do you do, Carrick, if anything?
I think it depends on what business you're in, right? The goal is to figure out what language your business talks in. You know, one of my fellow CISO friends works in healthcare. And so, and I love their example.
Patient safety. I've heard that a lot.
Exactly. Yes. Right. So all they do everything around patient safety, right? For my company, we ship stuff. How many lines have we shipped? Right? How many lines were we able to ship and get out to our customers? Because that's what everything's based on, is how do we ship and how do we, you know, satisfy those customers? Every business, I think, is going to be a little bit different in how you make that connection between what you're doing and what you're protecting and what matters to the business.
It's really not your job to make, and I'm just projecting here, and you tell me, but it's your job to show that you're keeping the business running as best as possible with the risk that they're willing to manage. You know, if you can say, we're keeping these ships lining, you can figure out the money you're making because, you know, X ships going out means we're making money. As if we fail on that metric, then that's where the trickle down of the financial issues happen. Yes?
Sure. I would say that's part of it. I think we also have a responsibility. I mean, everybody on the call, you guys all know this. In the security orgs, our folks, they're not like a regular development team necessarily. Most folks in the security teams they have a whole broad range of skills because they're always trying to fix stuff. They're always looking around different areas. So the areas that we can potentially support. So maybe you have a business, an e-commerce type business, right? And you've taken care of bots from a DDoS perspective. But maybe you can help the business take care of bots that aren't necessarily malicious, but you already have the skill set to help them manage some other pain in the butt type bots, adware type bots that are consuming resources or potentially doing other things to impact your business that may not be a direct security threat, but that show actual value to the business that you can quantify. So I think there's two angles to that. Sure, our job is secure revenue, right? Secure revenue. That's our primary job. But how can we also assist in helping them make more? How can we convert more?
How much are you like? Let's go back to the story answer that you had, Dan. Let me say this. Let me put it this way. What are stories you are finding Plextrack is helping businesses tell today that you couldn't tell a couple of years ago, say? What is the new stories are being told?
Yeah, you know, I think being able to tie more of the proactive metrics, especially around pen testing and red teaming, are becoming a more like what I would call a frontline citizen. Particularly, you know, what we've seen is, you know, we have a module that is really we've talked about on the show before is the purple teaming concept, right? It's a purple teaming module, and so it also highlights, you know, hey, here's all the procedures that are getting executed in the test plans, and even like threat related pen tests and assessments where, hey, we're testing against techniques that a specific threat actor has been known to execute in an environment. And so not only can they paint the picture of these are all the gaps that we have, but by the way, these are all the things that are working, right? These are all the things that are going well. And so that is helping continue to tell the story of that kind of that return on investment of what is, what are the things that are working, and maybe also exposing the things that they've invested in that aren't working the way that they should, right? So those are definitely
way,
some of the stories that we're seeing being told.
I want to spotlight, these are the things that are working well, which I don't know if you get a chance to say that, but that allows you to feed that common and tough question answer of, are we secure? Yes, Carrick? I mean, do you have the conversation of, hey, guess what? We did this and this is working really well. And just so I know you're not answering the, are we secure, but know that this is doing well kind of a thing. Do you have this kind of conversation?
Absolutely. Because if you're spending money on a program, if you're spending money on a process or on a project or on a new technology, how do you know whether you want to even renew that technology if you can't prove that the original business case still applies, right? So being able to go back and show the value of what you're bringing in, the value of what you're doing, the value of your improvements, right? Here's these technology, here's this process, here's what the changes that we've made. Without that, why would the business even offer to pay to renew that technology? I think it's critical.
That's a good point. Why would they pay to even occur? So I like the fact that we can start answering the "Are we secure?" question. Hey, guess what? The poll is up, everybody. That's what the bad ideas. We got like a dozen bad ideas in there, and
there were some really good ones.
There some good ones, yeah. So the point is, you want to vote for the one that you think Carrick and Dan will struggle to find a reason to implement. Okay, so not the easy ones, the ones you think they're going to struggle. So that's what you want to vote for here. All right. All right, I'm going to ask you this question. This was asked by Dimitri, and Hadass said she asked this on LinkedIn and got zero response. It's kind of like the metric question was just asked. It's really, what are the specific KPIs that are being reported to the board? What do you say? Like, what's the number? This number last week, this number this week. What are those key numbers? I mentioned mean time to remediate, which is a classic one we always hear. What do you say? Carrick.
Oh, for me, I think right now some of the biggest interest is around vulnerabilities in general. So we discussed different types. Not the number. How good are we at staying on top of them, and how broad is the coverage, right? From when it comes to how much of the environment are we seeing. But I also think that phishing continues to be a significant challenge in most industries. It's one that is easy enough for the business people to recognize. It's one that's real to them. I mean, I think everybody in my organization has received a fake text from our CEO. So it's something that they all recognize. And so I think those tend to be the ones that get highlighted more because they're easier to recognize. But for us, we have a whole swath of metrics, but we generally narrow them down to what are the 3 or 4 in each area that matter the most for that quarter cycle or whatever that period is. And talk about those, because we don't want metrics to be vanity metrics, right? If you can't leverage metrics to grow and become better, you're kind of wasting your time.
Good point. Dan, you were about to answer that question. Go ahead.
Well, and I'll just echo, like, I think that those are all, what we're seeing as well. And like you said, it can be very company specific, industry specific, but what's important is that folks are focusing on the trends, right? Are we, kind of what I mentioned before, of like, are we getting better from where we were last year or last week? And here's how we're doing that. That really, just like any other business metrics, you're going to see things in a trend. Like, did we have quarter over quarter growth? Did we have, or have we increased our pipeline to cover the sales projections? Those kinds of things, right? Those are the kinds of metrics that you really want to start, focusing on with the board. And I think it implores, prudent conversations with the board as well. Like, hey, here's what we're doing, and here's what we're tracking. Here's what I think is important to report. But what are the other things that are on your mind? I was talking to a customer the other day.
Hadass is still complaining, but what are they?
Yeah.
She wants names.
I mean, yeah. Well, I like I said, I think that it comes down to like trends around, the gaps. If something is related to a key area of risk, in your environment, say, hey, we have a substantial risk around exfiltration, data exfiltration. You can paint a story around that. Like here's
And
how
give
we're
a number
protecting
around
against
that,
data.
possibly.
Yeah, data exfiltration, and here's how we're testing against it, and here's how we're trending, and here's why we believe this is what's working. And I think that's what I'm trying to hammer home is like, you're going to have specific metrics. I always come back to what gets you breached. That's just being my nature as a pen tester. Like, I can bypass a lot of the security protections that you've put in place, and that's probably what the people that you're reporting to are going to want to know. So, being able to have a story around that, I will always say is important. And I kind of revert back to the attack kill chain because it's open. In the MITRE ATT&CK framework, it's open concepts and TTPs that are well known. Because as I was saying before, like there's a customer of ours that they get asked all the time, from their leadership. Well, whatever the flavor of the month is from the latest named attack, or whatever. How are we doing against Heartbleed or whatever? It's like you can actually show them with data, right?
I want to call out Dutch's bad idea, which I don't know if made it to the poll yet. But Carrick, if you've got some things, don't to say in terms of KPIs, don't just regale it solely to a private conversation with Hadass. But I do want to call out Dutch's bad idea. Tell your board that in odd number years, we only remediate CVEs ending in odd numbers, and claim you reduce your attack surface by 50%.
That's amazing.
That is
that is
pretty solid
like
advice there. You wouldn't need Plextrack. You wouldn't need anything.
No.
Focus on the odd numbered ones. And by the way, you got a 50-50 chance of actually hitting the important stuff. This is the way I see it. It's not that bad an idea. All right, Carrick, you said you were going to send something private to Hadass. Just tell us all publicly. What were you going to send privately to
Well, no, I was going
about
to
the
share the
KPIs?
actual. Yeah, I was going to share the actual slide and the template, which I can share. I can share with the group after the call or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
But okay, well, you know what? Give it to us. We can also post it also on
There we go.
On the
Perfect.
original post for this event as well. But yeah, I still push MTTR because it's the one we hear all the line. Okay, so Dutch's bad idea, which is a good bad idea, was just out of the poll. Feel free to vote for that or any of the horrible bad ideas because we'll be playing that game in 9 minutes. Just said. All right, but I do like this question also that Dutch just threw in here. I'll start with you, Carrick, and I feel that both of you can answer this. So let's see if we can come up with one here. Is there an analogy or a story that consistently lands with other departments outside of IT to help them internalize what vulnerabilities actually are and how they impact the business? Because, it's not security's role to fix all the vulnerabilities. It's, I know, doled out. So they have to understand the importance of dealing with this. What do you communicate? Because as a security professional, you have to be a communicator. What do you do?
Who first?
I'm
that-
sorry.
was that-
Pointing to you, Carrick. Here's the thing.
Oh,
None of you can see
sorry.
that I'm pointing to an individual on my screen. Why can't you see that? Carrick, it's you first, Carrick.
So I think a lot of it is like the tire analogy is a pretty good one, right? So
Mhm.
a vulnerability is like that bald tire when you're driving down the road, and it could be okay. It might work. It might get you from point A to B, and it might not. And what's the risk of it not? What happens if it does blow? I mean, are you going to be on the way to the hospital because your kid broke their arm or something worse? Is it going to be on the way to the grocery store? Maybe it wasn't as big of a deal. But if you don't stay on top of that maintenance, how do you even know? And I think keeping analogies to something that are just common and easy generally
the
are
card maintenance. Yeah, we all
Yeah.
understand that.
yeah, exactly. So
That's a good way of putting it.
that's been pretty effective.
What about you, Dan? You have another one you use?
I don't know that I've had a distinct story. I mean, I've always kind of come back to the notion of you have to know your audience and know what matters to them, to help show that you're partnering with them in their success, kind of that hero and guide kind of analogy where, they're the heroes, we're the guides just trying to help them stay on the right path and go win the battles that they're fighting. It's like I'm from an AppSec background. So, working with a lot of development teams, especially, about, what, 5, 7, I mean, I started AppSec a long time ago, but, 10 years ago or so, a lot of developers just had no clue what you're even talking about and why this would matter, that I have a SQL, an open-ended query that that anybody can hit, because there's no way that would make it through to the database. So being able to explain how and why and the impact has always been my prerogative, but coming at it from a perspective of like, what are the metrics that they care about? They care about getting code delivered on time, effectively and with high quality. And so, being able to speak to the quality metrics for AppSec perspective really has helped a lot. But yeah, every organization within, or every department within an organization is going to have a lot of reasons to be motivated, and so just trying to tap into what those are. But I do like the bald tire analogy from a general perspective. I think that's good.
Yeah, well, just maintenance in general. Castle metaphor is what Charles Snyder has used. Also works good. But how many people here currently live in a castle?
Working on it. Yeah.
I like David's analogy in the comments about using a house as an analogy, and the vulnerabilities being the unlocked door or the unlocked window or the gap in the fence. Because he's right, it does let you talk about the other controls.
And the
that
thing
go with
is, like,
vulnerabilities.
if you live in a dangerous neighborhood, you beef up your security, and you live in the less dangerous neighborhood, you don't. Or also, if you have the money, you get more security stuff, and if you don't, you don't. Like, you live in the risk that you choose, kind of a thing, or that you can only deal with, I guess. All right, let's go to the core question of this whole event: is what should I work on next? Carrick, I'm just going to ask you that today you're going to be looking at your team, your work. What do the guys decide? What are we working on next? How does that come up?
So we do an awesome audit every year where we look at all of the capabilities we use or that we rely on, even if they're not necessarily in our department. And we look at, okay, maturity-wise, where are we at now? And where do we need to be? And is this capability, we rank it in one of three ways. We say, is it a core, like an audit or compliance requirement? Is it really core? Or is it just something that we just want to have that's not really anything else? So we prioritize it. So we have an active list at all times of what are our key gaps? What are our key priorities from a capability perspective, aligned with where we want to go? And that really gives us a good roadmap on making sure that we don't sit around wondering what's next.
All right, Das writes, "Dear board, what we need is in this analogy is bigger doors in case we hit an iceberg. We can save more jacks." There you go. All right, let's get into, actually, we're going to jump into our game a little bit. Or actually, what am I saying? We have I'm going to give people 3 more minutes. You have 3 more minutes to vote on the poll, and then we're going to play the Department of Yes as well. So, here's a good question, and this I hear all the time. Like, just because this security tool is installed, just because I made this patch, how do I know things are improving, Dan?
Yeah, and that comes back to the value of being able to see the trends and being able to do testing and proactive assessments in a continuous fashion. Right, I talk about this a lot. In that, hey, just because it's installed or patched, you want to keep testing it. So utilizing some frameworks around doing a continuous assessment and showing, hey, these things are getting better over time, or we continue to see things pop up, in this organization or around this type of vulnerability. So it's important to, I think the annual audit is great from like, hey, what are the big gaps? What are the big priorities that we want to focus on this year? And then you probably break that down into chunks and like, okay, now we're going to assess these items and really see what are the bigger exposures we have, and then you work on those, and it's kind of that snowball effect, right?
All right, question for you. Think of your poster child customer. The customers are doing great. That is iterating like crazy. A, how often are they doing this continuous, pen testing? How often is this happening? And then second, what are how is it that they're being so active on top of it to improve the situation? Like, what is their environment? What are they doing that makes them sort of be the poster child of your product that they're enhancing themselves? And maybe what you've learned something from them in the process too.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a couple that I can draw from, right? One, they've made a conscious effort as a department to be more proactive than reactive, right?
Okay.
But no, with the understanding that the proactive capabilities are informing and improving the reactive capabilities as well, right? So it's truly that kind of purple teaming concept. They're doing weekly assessments where they're small bite-sized chunks, right? So it's like, hey, we're going to go test these specific procedures or these elements that we think we have gaps in, right? And so they're just exercising that muscle around this as a continuous program, right?
And let me go to you, Carrick, on this one. But this is one of the things I think that I've heard from a lot of pen testing is, yes, you need the global, but this sort of targeted pen testing allows people to focus. How does your team react from global to targeted pen testing?
I think there's a big difference generally in how it's carried out, right? Generally, your targeted stuff is, hey, I locked my front door. Can you double check that my front door is locked? And that provides a really nice narrow scope, so you can get some purple team stuff there. You know what they're going to be looking at. You can have your team looking there and make sure that you're seeing the signals and what have you. The global ones, I think, in some ways provide a little bit more value from the perspective that I see it more as you're telling them to get in the house. You don't really care how they do it, and so sometimes in those cases, you may not even be looking where they're.
He dropped out.
I'm still here. Can you guys still hear me?
Carrick.
Oh, did I drop off?
Yeah, just like the last 6 words you said. Just repeat the last sentence.
Okay.
Just say it again.
I don't remember where I was at, but basically the global one, just the fact that they can come in from anywhere, right? And so it provides a broader footprint for them to try, and a little bit harder to do live from a purple team perspective, maybe, but in some cases better after actions to really understand how they got in and what happened.
All right. We have a call that just came in. Oops.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
So some really stupid bad ideas here, and this is the way it works. Dan knows this very well, so I'm going to make him start here. So let me see. We have one. There was one I really liked here. It was from Will Taluba. This is I like from Will Taluba. Make your security program. This I like, and this because people talk about SaaS, security as a service. Not security, software as a service, but they also we heard security service. But make your security program self-service, allowing users to create their own policies, inclusions, and exemptions. Why do you want to do that, Dan?
Oh, I think it exacerbates your security awareness training, right? I mean, like you get to identify who's learning, the right things and who's not.
Actually, I'm going to give that to you. All right. It does accelerate. Not exactly accelerate. I would say use accelerate, but no, I like that. And then you get to pinpoint where the problems are. So you could conceivably remediate them, but it is going to create a lot of problems for you as well. All right. Carrick, why do you want to do this?
Same thing?
No, you can't say same thing. Give me a better answer.
No. The same question though, right?
Same question, yes.
Same
that's
question.
me answering you. Same question. So again, make your security program self-service, allowing users to create their own policies, exclusions, and exemptions.
I mean, that allows us to do away with the security team, save a lot of money. And since we're never going to be breached anyway, why does it matter if we have a security team?
You're being
users
facetious. You know you're going to get breached. But you could conceivably, if you democratize security responsibility, you could conceivably get rid of your security team, couldn't you?
You could, absolutely.
All right.
In theory.
I'm giving it to you. All right, here's the next one. I think what we're going to do here, hold on, let me see who we're going to pick. I think we're going to go with Dutch's suggestion here. Tell your board that in odd-numbered years, we only remediate CVEs ending in odd numbers. Claim you reduce your tax surface by 50%. Take Fridays off. Carrick, why do you want to do this?
Well, first off, Fridays off increases the morale of the team. They're already working all the time. So the morale is important, right? As far as the CVEs, there's so many that we can't tackle them all anyway, and we have to prioritize them in some way. And given that the CVE scores themselves don't matter all that much anyway, if you haven't re-risked them, then picking odd numbers is fine. It's a perfectly, it makes sense. It makes sense to do it. And as far as the reduce attack surface, do we even know what our attack surface is? I think we can call that whatever number we want.
Very possibly. All right, Dan, why do you want to do this? Again, only odd numbered ones. Again, I do want to point out that that I don't think the even number ones ever get dealt with, but we'll see. All right, what do you think?
Well, Yeah, I mean, who likes even numbers, right? I mean, things are better in odd numbers, and so all the prime numbers are odd, right? And so it just adds to the uniqueness that how you can report on things. I think Carrie said it eloquently. I think that the morale of the team is important. So who doesn't like having Fridays off? And attackers really don't do much of their work on Fridays because they take them off anyways. So that's an important aspect. And then that by working backwards, from the years, you're tackling some of the most recent issues already anyways, and so you're getting a good coverage with those odd CVEs. So I think it's a win-win.
Okay, so here's the thing. Justin Wheeler did point out that number 2 is prime.
Oh, 2 is prime. Yeah,
whatever.
Whatever.
But I'm going to give you for your passion, I'm giving you for the quality of your answer, though. All right. Good all the way around. By the way, thank you, everybody, for and Emma, our CISO Series jacket winner, is joining us. Great. That's awesome. All right. How much time we got left? We've got about 15 minutes left. Okay, let's get to. We have a question? Who's this from here? This is from Dave. When getting a pen test done, is it better to go back to the same pen tester to see improvements over time, or better to vary the pen tester to potentially leverage different tools and models? This is a really good question, and you know about this because the people you work with use your platform with multiple pen testers, I'm assuming. What have you seen? And I'm pointing to Dan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we see a mix. I'm sorry, I assumed you were talking to me. We see a mix, and I think it's important. The variety of getting some fresh eyes on things is always valuable, and then also having people that have in-depth knowledge of your environment and or the application that they're pen testing also provides a lot of value because they can go deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So you want that balance, and that's what we've seen a lot of folks do. So they either have an internal team or some form of automated tool that's doing some of that internal testing, as well as utilizing a firm where they may switch up the pen testers, or they'll just switch firms throughout the year as well.
All right. I'm assuming all one, all the other, bad idea. Correct, Carrick? Like essentially nothing but new pen testers, or just the one pen tester all the time.
You need to have the consistent nature of somebody who actually knows the environment. But the pen testers that come in, they all have their specialties, and that's one of the biggest things I found. Pen testers are great, but there's very few that are good at all different types of pen testing. So mixing it up, having a bug bounty program, getting that exposure, right? The more ideas, the more people looking for problems, the more problems you're going to find.
All right. Yeah. Oh, we're throwing up the 10% better poll too right now as well. Submissions are closed, they're going up. And let's see. Let me just, and before anybody even votes, cultural shift. I don't even know what that 10% better tip means. But okay, so we did mention the figure out what people hate to do and automate it so you can remove burnout. We've heard that. And tell me who threw these up. When evaluating products and services that fit into your security program, consider the force multiplication factor of each. All right, this is an interesting thing. I'm going to throw this to you, Carrick, is what have you found, and this could be automation actually, that you could get rid of vulnerability through automation. What have you found has been the greatest force multiplier in your environment that's improved your team to be a more powerful security team?
I think having a really well integrated ticketing platform that is connected to the various tools so that you are working out of a single pane of glass is probably going to be one of your bigger changes. The bigger complaints I get from the security teams is having to go into 1,000 different tools or however many tools that we have at that
switching
that
cost.
Job. Exactly. And being able to work out of a single pane of glass and having that pane of glass integrated. So if you need to do a password reset, you click a button. If you need to go and set a ticket for a vulnerability, you click a button. And it's all built into that ticketing platform with the other departments and other organizations within your company. It seems to be a big time saver. Plus it tracks your KPIs, it tracks your metrics. They can show that they were doing work. There's a lot of benefits to that.
All right. I throw this to you, Dan. What have you seen to be the force multiplier?
It's a very self-serving question.
Go ahead,
And Carrie,
dude.
I mean,
Yeah,
you couldn't
it's
have teed it
Plextrack.
up. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what we, we actually do have a lot of metrics and a lot of happy customers around. Yeah, hey, one, on the testing side, you've helped us improve, dramatically in morale, and not had to go hire more people because we're able to be more efficient. But also because we focus on the entire life cycle, from the data collection, the reporting, the tracking, and the remediation. So we integrate, we do most of what you just said, Carrie, we do, right, in terms of integrating with the ticketing systems and having the metrics right at your fingertips. So yeah, less context switching, the better, is really from a workflow improvement perspective. That's what improves morale. Reducing as much of the menial tasks as possible is really the goal, because there are a lot of complicated tools that your team is going to be focused on just getting to work, and you want to get past that. So those integrations are vital, and being able to actually get value from the tools that you've invested, and not have to switch to the 10 different portals, right? So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a plug for Plextrack on that side.
I'm going to throw this to you, Carrick. I run into this myself. There's always these like vulnerabilities or issues you can deal with easily, and then there's ones you can't deal with easily but need to get done. How do you force yourself and the team to do the tough stuff that needs to get done, even when there's easy ones that need to be done, but you're like, "Ugh, I really got to focus on this. How do you do it?"
I think
And I'm assuming this happens. I'm making assumptions here.
So generally speaking, in my experience, those of us who find the vulnerabilities don't necessarily fix them, right?
Right.
So the key answer to that question isn't really what I'm doing. It's more about what we're doing, building that community of interest, that collaboration of trust, so that when you tell the infrastructure guys or whoever it is at your company that does that, the desktop team or whoever it is that does the patching, why they need to go and focus on one specific one, even if it's a little bit more of a pain versus others. And that's where having a good vulnerability management program that has re-risking and prioritization built into it allows you to lump all those together and prioritize them accordingly. So you're not really chasing any oddball per se. You have everything organized together.
Very good response. All right. I have some more questions to ask. Oh, excuse me. No, I'm going to go to the audience questions before I do that. From Joshua Mason, is it better to use a firm that is only focused on pen testing, or a firm that offers both pen testing and consulting on remediation? I mean, I guess that really just comes down to whether you've got the capabilities or not. Yes, Carrick,
Yeah.
Dan?
I think it, and generally, I think the pen testing is the important aspect there for most companies that I've been at. We'll remediate our own stuff.
I'm assuming, Dan, you work with companies that have consultants that are working with your product as well, yes?
Yeah. I mean, we have folks that, they're either just doing the pen testing and delivering the results and able to use the platform for collaboration on those results, and then the blue team picks up the findings and can track and remediate from there. But yeah, if you don't have a lot of that expertise in house, there are service providers out there that not only do the pen testing but also work on helping you with the remediation. And so it really depends, I think, on your capabilities, like you said.
I'm going to remind people now, I'm going to wrap up the show in a few minutes, but we are going to be doing our meetup at the end of the thing. We have a nice big crowd here, which is great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I want that huge crowd to join the meetup portion, too. So please stick around for that. It's a ton of fun. I promise you, you'll have a good time. You'll have a good time. Stick around. And both Carrick and Dan will be there, right? Both of you will be there? Awesome.
Yep.
And by the way, Dan, are you hiring?
Yes, we are. We have some open roles. To go to the website and check us out for sure.
I'm hearing of a lot of people getting laid off these days. So this is, by the way, lots of people been hired by meeting up at the meetup. Carrick, are you hiring, by the way?
We are, absolutely.
Awesome.
Go to the website and look and or
you could
find us on LinkedIn.
You can chat Pete Carrick up immediately after
Absolutely.
as well. All right, let me do a quick wrap up of everything today, and then we'll get sort of closing comments as well. So give me a second to wrap this, do our closing wrap up portion. Remember that link at the bottom is about to change. So if you have not registered for what's going to happen in 2 weeks, click that link like right this second, because it's going to change in about a minute or two. All right. So our next show, as you see at the bottom of the screen, is hacking vulnerability remediation. No show next Friday because of the holiday weekend, but an hour of critical thinking on how to improve the efficiency of what vulnerability needs to be fixed next and by whom. So we're going to maybe even a little deeper dive than we were discussing today as well, talking specifically about the remediation efforts as well. So stick around for that. And as I mentioned, if you register early, you get to win an awesome CISO Series jacket. Again, congrats to Emma. Your jacket has been ordered. Thank you, Plextrack, Dan's company. They, again, awesome sponsor of the CISO Series. I think what they're doing is pretty cool. If you haven't checked it out, please do check them out. Actually, Dan, I'm going to ask you more of that later, but is there a demo on the site, or they can get a trial, right? Something like that.
Yeah. You can sign up for a demo and you talk to our team and we'll get you hooked up.
All right. Of course. All right. Starting in really 96 minutes from now, Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. We got Ed Covert, who's the head of Cyber Risk Engineering, a Bowhead specialty. That's going to be on our YouTube channel, not here, but on our YouTube channel. And you can actually engage in conversation. We just covered the 8 biggest stories of the week. So please stick around for that. That's going to happen at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Stick around for a meetup. You can change that link at the bottom of the screen. There, he did it. Like that. Aaron, our producer, is awesome in the background. You can click that link now as we're getting to our last 5 minutes of the show. And that will be our other platform, Toucan, where we do our fun meetup after the meetup. And tell your friends to join us. We do this every Friday at 1 p.m., except, obviously, next Friday, but essentially what I should say, every available Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 Pacific. If you ever want to know, just go to the events page on CISOseries.com, and that tells you, would you like to sponsor CISO Super Cyber Friday? In fact, we have an opening in 1 month. 1 month from now, we got an opening. Just go ahead and email me at david@CISOseries.com. We would love to have you on board. All right, let's close this whole sucker out. I'm going to start with you, Dan. Any closing thoughts or advice on this topic of really, what do you deal with next? And anything you want to pitch beyond what I just asked you a second ago about Plextrack as well?
No, I mean, I think we were able to kind of highlight, what our capabilities are and the why. I had all these pains, I've lived all these pains, and this is why I started the company and why we've, continued to grow. And I would just always emphasize to folks to just continue to stay proactive. It's easy, especially when you're first getting started in a security program, to really focus on the reactive and the legacy issues. And that's not unimportant. That's still important, but you'll always spend your time there as opposed to getting on the proactive side. And we've seen people that shift their mindset to being proactive and continuous really have an uptick in morale in general, because it actually does make it feel like you're making progress and you're actually getting stuff done, as opposed to always feeling behind the 8 ball, right? So I think that's an important aspect. In Plextrack, obviously, that's our mission. We want to help expose the things that you focus on next, and how do you improve your posture over time, and be able to paint those stories. So that's our mission. We're here to help, and always love being here on the show.
By the way, here's my next suggestion, because and correct me if I'm wrong, Carrick, on this, was proactive reduces stress. Yes?
Absolutely. Who wants to run from fire to fire? Can you imagine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we do.
Yeah, I know.
Plextrack.
We're conditioned to do it, right?
Here's your new marketing. Plextrack, stress management solution for the security team.
There you go. I like it.
All right. Let me ask you, were you at a time, Carrick, where you were behind the 8 ball, where you were more reactive than proactive, and what allowed for the shift to happen?
I've built a number of programs, and I think the number one hard sell initially, but that always pays off in the end, coming into a new program, is resetting the team and building the basics. The number of, going into a team that doesn't even have a policy program, who doesn't have the basics laid out. It's the whole build on rock versus build on sand. If you build on rock, you're more proactive, you're more confident, you have stable footing, you have a more credible base, literally. So that's probably the biggest thing I've seen. Is sometimes it's the boring work to make sure that you've got your basics covered so that you can build off of it. But that's the work that's going to last and sustain the program.
Excellent. A great closing comment. We're going to wrap this up a little, just about a minute early. Hey, thank you so much, Dan DeClass. who is over with Plextrack. Thank you very much. And also Carrick Stanwyck, who's over at Avnet as well. Both gentlemen will be joining us
Thank you.
at the meetup immediately afterwards. And I hope all of you are going to be at the meetup afterwards. What I would like you to do is click that link at the bottom of the screen and join us over there, because we're going to do it now. Huge thanks to our producers, Andrew and Aaron. Aaron really running the whole darn show. So thank you very much, Aaron. And oh, by the way, I didn't make a call out. Brian Colt was one of those great 10% tips about evaluating the products and services, consider the force multiplier fashion. And I had mentioned Hadass earlier was the one about find out what everyone hates to do and work on that. Thank you, everybody. Take us out, Aaron.